Have you ever imagined believing you were living the most romantic moment of your life, and, in an instant, realizing you were being led to your own death? High on a mountain, wrapped in mist and slicing cold, she believed in promises of love, a husband who smiled, an invitation to start over. But behind that smile, there was only the laugh of betrayal. When the flames swallowed the cabin, it wasn't just the wood that burned. Dreams burned. Trust burned. Every illusion of an entire life burned. As cruel laughter echoed outside, she believed that would be her end. But, from ashes, something always rises. Because not every fire destroys. Some forge a true transformation. This is the story of a woman who died in the fire of a lie, and rose from the ashes like a phoenix, not to live in silence, but to make each and every one of those who condemned her pay. The cold wind sliced along the mountain's winding road like invisible blades. The car climbed slowly, headlights cutting through the dense fog that hid the way ahead. Inside, Yuen watched the dark landscape through the window. Her heart pounded, convinced this trip was proof of love. Beside her, Hyun drove with a rehearsed smile, both hands steady on the wheel. He spoke of a weekend for two, far from the city, to relive moments time had stolen. Yuen, vulnerable and so willing to believe, clung to that promise like someone clinging to the last rope over an abyss. The poison of betrayal was there, silent, hidden in the false smile. The mountain cabin appeared imposing, ringed by tall pines and wrapped in shadow. The air smelled of old wood and damp cold. To Yuen, it looked like a romantic refuge. To him, it was the perfect trap. Inside, she was enchanted by the lit hearth, the crackle of fire. She walked the space, fingertips on rustic furniture, never imagining those flames would be her sentence. "It's beautiful here," she said, smiling at her husband, believing every word he'd told her. Hyun stepped close, smoothing her shoulders with counterfeit tenderness. "You deserve it, Yuen. Tonight will be unforgettable." And it was. Hours later, as she slept in the bedroom, the click of the door latch woke her. She opened her eyes to see smoke spreading along the ceiling. The fire, once caged in the fireplace, was climbing the walls. The smell of burning wood invaded her lungs, choking her. She ran to the door, but it was locked from the outside. She pounded, screamed, begged. On the other side, she heard laughter, her husband's laughter, and a muttered line, "Burn, you idiot. Now all your money is mine," muffled by the crackle of the flames. Tears slid down her face, streaking through soot. She threw her weight against the door, but her strength was gone. Heat pressed in. The fire licked the air. Darkness started to swallow her vision. In that instant, a shadow moved between the flames. Woo-Jin, a man who lived in the mountain, knew every inch of that terrain. Seeing smoke rise, he ran for the cabin. His eyes knew this place, and knew the hidden entrance no one else remembered. With arms wrapped in a heavy hooded coat that half hid his face, he slipped through the side passage, coughing in the smoke. The heat was suffocating, but urgency burned hotter. Through the haze of fire, he saw a woman collapse near the door, her fragile body in despair. "Hang on," he breathed, almost without air, lifting her into his arms. Every step was a battle. Fire seared his back. The ceiling groaned. Burning beams crashed around them. Woo-Jin shielded her with his body, feeling the pain of burns bite into his skin. And still, he didn't stop. Outside, the husband watched the flames with satisfaction. "Now everything is mine," he said, smiling. Far off, Woo-Jin staggered through the dark, carrying Yuen in his arms, sweat and blood on his face, but unshaken. Their silhouettes disappeared into the forest, guarded by a stranger. In the makeshift cabin where he lived, Woo-Jin treated her burns with herbs and cold mountain water. Days bled into weeks. Yuen could hardly speak or move. Her body was fragile, wrapped in bandages. He cooked for her, cleaned her wounds, kept quiet. Words weren't needed. Care was his language. And in the rare moments she could open her eyes, she looked at him. Just looked. It was gratitude. It was life. It was the first spark of something she couldn't yet name. In the dark of her nights of pain, Yuen swore to herself, "From the ashes I will rise." And in that silence, the fire that almost killed her turned to fuel. Watching her hover between life and death, between nightmares and tears, he knew he had to do more to keep her from sinking into pain. He drew closer, and in a low voice edged with conviction said, he studied her in silence, searching for a way to reach her. Leaning in, he murmured softly, yet with a will to rewrite fate. I'll call you Da-Yoon, because Da means great and prosperous, and Yoon means mercy and kindness. To me, the fact you survived is a sign life showed you mercy, recognizing the goodness in your soul. His words struck her like a blow. Mercy, kindness, she thought. None of that matched what burned in her chest. She didn't want to be remembered for grace, but for fury. Her heart cried for vengeance, and for an instant her eyes grew dark. Woo-Jin noticed the shift, uneasy. What is it? You don't like it. We can find another name. Then she gripped his hand, firm. He faltered at the touch. So, you like it? He asked carefully. Not wanting to disappoint him, she gave a soft blink and a small nod to answer for her. A quiet yes, heavy with gratitude for his kindness, though inside she knew she would never be the Da-Eun he imagined. Time didn't seem to exist in that hidden mountain cabin. Days were marked only by the light slipping through the gaps in the wood and the wind cutting the trees. Inside, near total silence, broken only by the pop of the small fire. Yuen lay swathed in bandages, her body still marked by the blaze. Movements were minimal. Every gesture brought pain. Her breath, slow and heavy, came with an empty gaze that slowly filled with gratitude whenever it settled on her savior. Woo-Jin, the mountain man, cared for her like something rare. His hands, calloused by a hard, solitary life, were firm but gentle as he changed her dressings. He cooked simple soups with herbs and roots from the woods, feeding her spoon by spoon. There were no questions, no answers, but in the silence of their small routines, a bond began to form. One morning she woke to wind whispering through the window. She tried to move her arms and winced. Outside, Woo-Jin was chopping wood. He ran in. "It's okay," he murmured, laying a hand on her shoulder as if to pass strength through the touch. She looked at him, eyes wet. She wanted to thank him, to say she could never repay his care. No words came, only tears. Woo-Jin softly dried her face with a clean cloth and went back to feeding her, patient as ever. Every spoonful she managed to swallow was a victory. Sometimes the pain was unbearable. She'd close her eyes and see flashes of the fire, flames climbing the walls, her husband's cruel laughter, the lover's cold stare. Her body tensed. Her heart raced like she was back in the burning cabin. In those moments, Woo-Jin simply sat beside her. He said nothing. He stayed, unmoving, letting his presence protect her. His silence was not the silence of betrayal. It was a silence that shielded. Weeks passed, and small changes appeared. Yuen could move a hand, then an arm, then sit for a few minutes. With each step, Woo-Jin watched quietly. No big praise, just a small smile tugging his mouth. One night, while he changed her bandages, Yuen lifted a trembling hand and touched the burned skin on his arm. He'd been hurt in the fire too. She tried to speak. Her voice was raw. "You..." He looked up, surprised to hear her voice for the first time. "Don't worry about me," he answered softly. "What matters is that you're alive." Her heart jolted. A man who didn't know her had let himself be burned for her, cared for her, without wanting anything in return. For the first time in years, she felt something like safety. Still, nights dragged on. She couldn't sleep without reliving the blaze, the cruel laughter, the betrayal. One dawn, sitting by the small window, she watched the moon light the mountain. Tears slipped down without her noticing. Woo-Jin came in with a blanket. He said nothing, just tucked it around her and sat beside her. "Why, did you save me?" she managed to ask. He took a few seconds. "Because no one deserves to die alone." The words hit like a silent punch. She looked away, clutching the blanket. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a burden, currency, or disposable thing. Months went by. Recovery was slow but steady. Yuen could walk around the cabin, though still marked by scars. She'd thinned, not out of vanity, but pain and no appetite. When she looked in the makeshift mirror Woo-Jin fashioned from polished glass, she barely recognized herself. She was no longer the woman she'd been, outside or within. The naive believer in promises had been consumed by fire. What remained was something new. One day, while organizing a few things, she found old documents she'd brought along, tucked inside a small wooden box. Letters from a distant uncle who'd died years before. In one envelope, a forgotten will, an inheritance in her name, land, stocks, bank vaults. Her hands trembled. Fate was giving her not just a second chance to live, but to fight. She closed her eyes and made her decision in silence. She would no longer be a victim. She would be the phoenix. That night, before sleep, she stepped to Woo-Jin by the fire as he stitched a torn coat. "One day," she began, voice steadier than before, "I'm going to leave this mountain." He looked up. Firelight painted his calm face. "And where will you go?" She drew a breath, gaze fixed on the flames. "Wherever the fire takes me. I need to go back and settle accounts." He didn't question it. He only nodded, as one who understands some battles are inevitable. And as she closed her eyes, Yuan knew. Her rebirth had only begun. Mornings on the mountain always started with birds cutting the cold air. The sun rose shyly through the trees, tinting the sky with gold and rose. To Yuan, each dawn was a quiet proof she was still alive, despite all she'd lost. She could now walk with difficulty, bracing herself on the cabin's wooden walls. Her body still ached, but not only physically. The memory of fire, of Hyun's cruel laughter, of Minji's satisfied expression, kept her quiet. Silence, however, was no longer empty. It was filled with Woo-Jin's small gestures, the smell of herb tea every morning, the knife's rhythm on vegetables, the discreet warmth of the fire he kept going. She didn't need words to feel. Each kindness was an unspoken promise that she wasn't alone. One afternoon, he led her to a stream running over moss-covered stones. Water echoed through the forest, bringing a peace she hadn't felt in years. "This is where I come when I want to forget the world," he said. Yuan sat on a damp rock, watching the water run. She touched it with her fingertips, the cold cutting through her skin. "I want to forget, but I can't." Woo-Jin's gaze was calm. "Forgetfulness is impossible. Learning to live with scars, that's different." She stared at her warped reflection in the water. Marked face, tired eyes, wounded soul. For the first time, she realized she didn't hate those scars. They proved she'd survived. Nights were still rough. Often she woke screaming, feeling flames eat her again. Woo-Jin, wordless, would hold her hand until she settled. Sometimes he stayed awake all night, so she wouldn't feel alone in the dark. In one of those hours between tears and silence, she whispered, "You don't even know me. Why treat me like this?" He considered her a moment. "Because when I pulled you from that fire, I realized I was saving not only your life, but mine too." His honesty surprised even him. Yuan fell silent, heart racing. Gratitude, hope, fear. She couldn't tell. But she knew from then on she wouldn't look at him the same way. Months later, Yuan was discharged from her first surgeries at a discreet clinic in the capital. Burned skin had been grafted. The deepest scars were fading. Each procedure hurt, but to her it was just another chapter of rebirth. The body that once held insecurity was becoming a symbol of discipline and strength. Back at the cabin for final recovery, Woo-Jin awaited with hot soup, as always. This time, when she removed the bandages from her face, he fell silent longer than usual. His serene eyes reflected surprise and something else. Embarrassed, she tried to hide. "I'm not the same." "No, you're not," he said softly. "You're stronger." Over time, Yuan began writing in a notebook. Her hands still shook, but every word was a piece of her new life. She wrote about fire, betrayal, loneliness, and about the man who fed her spoon by spoon, braved the cold for herbs, and sat by her when she screamed in the night. It was a journal of gratitude, but also a map to who she would become. One day she ended a page with, "Yuan died in that burning cabin. From the ashes, someone was born who has no name yet. But soon, the whole world will know it." That's when the final decision came. She wouldn't just return to the city or seek the best doctors to rebuild her. She would be reborn with a new identity. The name came like a whisper in her heart. Da-un, a flower that blooms again in spring. An artistic name, but symbolic too. Like the flowers that outlast winter, she had outlasted fire. Woo-Jin heard it and stayed quiet for a few seconds. "It's beautiful, but the name doesn't matter. I'll always see you for who you are." Her heart trembled. Part of her wanted to believe she could live on nothing but that look. Another part, still burning, remembered Hyun and Minji. Justice could not be forgotten. On her last night before heading to the city, she rose and stepped onto the porch. The cold wind cut her skin, but she stood there, staring at the full moon over the forest. Woo-Jin came behind her, silent as always. They stood side by side for a few seconds. Then she said, "I have to go." "I know." Tears blurred her eyes. "What if I don't come back?" "I'll still be here waiting," he said after a breath. "And if you do come back, I'll be ready to walk beside you." A single tear fell, and she realized her life was no longer made of vengeance alone. Something else had been born in the ashes. The city felt foreign after months in the mountain. Bright streets, massive billboards, skyscrapers catching the morning sun. Everything seemed strange to the woman the world now knew as Da-eun. She wore discreet clothes, but her posture was nothing like the naive wife led to a cabin. Her eyes carried the memory of fire, and inside them burned something unshakable: resolve. Her first days were filled with top specialists. They rebuilt skin, softened scars, shaped features. Every surgery was painful, but to her, it was nothing more than another step in rebirth. The body that once harbored doubt now reflected discipline and force. Between recoveries, she thought of Woo-Jin, the quiet, steady eyes, the hands that changed her dressings when no one else would. She missed him, and yet the strength he planted in her wouldn't let her quit. Meanwhile, she organized the forgotten inheritance, shares in rising companies, valuable land, hidden investments. In a rainy afternoon boardroom, she spread papers across a table, and for the first time, spoke with unwavering voice. "With this, we'll build something no one can erase. The name is Phoenix Group." The lawyer hesitated. "A strong name, but too symbolic. People will ask questions." "Let them," she said coolly. "Fire destroys, but it also purifies. Those who can read will understand." Months passed. Phoenix Group surged, buying struggling firms and reviving them under rigorous management. Her coolness in business contrasted with calculated charisma in public. To the media, she was a mysterious executive with no traceable past. In interviews, when asked about her story, she only smiled. Ashes hide secrets, but they also guard what can't be destroyed. The line spread, and her aura grew. Elsewhere, Hyun and Minji enjoyed stolen wealth. Their company grew, but not like their new rival. Papers began comparing them, and inevitably, Phoenix loomed as a threat. At a gala, Hyun saw Da-eun for the first time. He didn't recognize her. To him, she was simply another dazzling guest. He approached with his usual charm, offering a flute. "It's rare to see someone as captivating in this city. What's your name?" She smiled faintly, heart thudding. "Some call me Phoenix, others an enigma. For you, it's enough that I'm unforgettable." He laughed, seduced by the mystery. From a distance, Minji watched, uneasy, something about the woman pulling at a buried echo. The weeks that followed were a waltz of shadows. Hyun tried to get close, fascinated. Da-eun received him with elegance, never surrender. Each meeting was a silent trap. The more he thought he was winning her, the closer he drew to ruin. Minji hired investigators, but the woman seemed to have no past, like a myth. At home, Da-eun wrote in the notebook that had followed her since the mountain. Her entries shifted, from pain and gratitude to power and justice. "I don't need the world to know who I am," she wrote. "It's enough that only they, recognize the flames that came back to burn them." Still, her heart betrayed her in quiet ways. Amid parties and contracts, she remembered Woo-Jin, the man who chose isolation, but stepped into fire to save her. Late one night, she searched his name. Nothing. He truly lived outside the world. Part of her wanted to run back to the mountain, but as long as Hyun and Minji walked free, peace was impossible. Proof came over dinner. Surrounded by investors, someone joked, "The Hans and Seo still brag about how fast they climbed. Some say they had unexpected luck after a tragic accident." Da-eun kept her poised smile while her blood boiled. They still laughed, still believed they'd won. In her car, she whispered to her reflection, "If the fire didn't consume them, I'll burn them myself with what's left of the ashes." The plan took shape. Phoenix Group would be more than an economic power. It would be the blade for her meticulous vengeance. There would be no escape. A mirrored skyscraper cut into Seoul's cloudy sky like a glass blade. At the top, bathed in late afternoon gold, a new logo glowed. A phoenix in ascent, wings of fire. Below it, strong letters, Phoenix Group. From the panoramic boardroom, Da-eun looked out over the city like a general surveying a battlefield. Every contract, every acquisition, every bold bet was more than business. It was an arrow fired into the hearts of those who had condemned her to flames. At first, tycoons laughed at the mysterious young woman trying to dominate the market. The laughter faded when she delivered aggressive strategy, precise forecasts, and a fearlessness few dared match. She didn't fear risk. After all, someone who's already died once doesn't fear falling again. Soon, the Phoenix was no promise but power. Failed companies rose under her command. Foreign investors courted her, drawn by profits, and the myth draped over her name. Meanwhile, Hyun and Minji watched with growing dread. Their stolen company was losing ground, suffocated by Phoenix's meteoric rise. On a stormy night, Hyun hurled a glass at his office wall. "Who is she? Where did she come from?" Minji, cool on the sofa, narrowed her eyes. "No one rises that fast without hiding something. I'll find what's behind this Phoenix." Her cold laugh echoed. Another woman imposing herself was unthinkable. Da-eun tracked their every move unseen. Secret dossiers piled up, fake contracts, bribes, market manipulation. With each proof collected, her smile chilled. At night, alone in her penthouse, she spread the evidence across the table, the notebook open beside it. She wrote in steady hand, "They think they took everything from me. What they really stole was my name. I'll return it to them, etched in fire." Then came the invitation, a luxurious event by international investors. Of course, Hyun and Minji were on the list. Chandeliers, violins, glittering gowns. When Da-eun entered in flowing red silk, like fire in motion, every head turned. Hyun couldn't look away. "I can't believe we hadn't met before," he smiled. "A woman like you doesn't go unnoticed." "Sometimes," she replied. "You have to disappear to learn how to fly." He laughed, missing the irony. From afar, Minji felt ice crawl her spine. Something in that look, that presence, tugged at the impossible. Later that night, a text flashed on Da-eun's phone. "You're playing with fire. Careful. Flames can burn you too." Her heart kicked. Second warning from the shadows. Someone knew too much. Tension mounted. Phoenix set records while Hyun's firm bled. Shares plunged. Investors fled. Headlines screamed. An empire collapsing in the Phoenix's wake. In an emergency meeting, partners demanded answers. Hyun, sweating, faked composure. "It's a phase. We'll recover." Their faces said otherwise. Outside, Minji clenched her phone. She had a shadow tailing Da-eun day and night. Still no answers, but her gut screamed, this woman had a score to settle. As the noose tightened, Da-eun allowed herself the occasional pause. On moonlit nights, she paced her balcony and remembered Woo-Jin, the man who dressed her wounds, who expected nothing. In her mind, he was the life she could have had without vengeance. Simple, quiet care. But the memory of Hyun and Minji fanned the flames again. One night she opened the locket she always wore. Inside, a small old photo, her and her parents, before the accident that took them. "They took everything. My inheritance, my name, my dignity," she said to her reflection. "But I came back. Now they'll pay." Phoenix was no longer a company. It was an empire. And with it, Da-eun readied the next step, a strike at the traitors' hearts. A soft fog lay over the city like time itself, hesitated to reveal what came next. In her office, Da-eun studied the skyline as if at a chessboard. Reports and dossiers lay like pieces ready to move. Proof of fraud, embezzlement, rigged contracts. Not time yet to topple everything. Pleasure lived in the process, watching enemies drown slowly in their own lies. That week, Hyun invited her to a private dinner at one of the city's most luxurious restaurants. For him, a game of seduction. For her, a carefully staged show. In a simple black dress that sharpened her elegance, she arrived. Hyun's fascination was obvious. "You're an extraordinary woman," he said. "Hard to believe fate kept us apart. Sometimes fate needs a nudge." She smiled. Back home, she wrote, "He looks at me like he owns the world. Soon he'll see he's just a piece. When the fire reaches him, there will be no way out." While Hyun sank into her orbit, Minji sank into suspicion. Investigators found only shadows. It was as if Da-eun had appeared from nowhere, just like a myth. On a stormy night, Minji stared at a wall of photos, reports, red ink lines. "Who are you?" she whispered. "No one comes out of fire without leaving traces." Da-eun advanced. Using Hyun as a channel, she infiltrated their circle. Meeting by meeting, she won over allies once loyal to the stolen empire. Toast by toast, she took a slice of the power they thought they held. But the real blow was coming. At a corporate event, flanked by foreign investors, she praised Hyun's legacy, hinting that his company stood on fragile pillars. The words sounded like a compliment, but carried iron. Hyun laughed, deaf to the poison. Minji, though, felt her blood run cold. The line sounded like a threat. One night, an anonymous call, a distorted voice. You're playing with monsters. They burned you once. If they find out, they'll do it again. She stared at the moonlit window. Let them try, she said after the click. You don't put out fire with more fire. Inside her, a struggle deepened, vengeance burning like a feral flame on one side, the possibility of a love born in silence on the other. In her journal, between love and revenge, what is true rebirth? Can a phoenix fly without the weight of ashes? In prison of their own minds, Hyun and Minji repeated Yuen's name, insisting Da-eun was the dead returned. No one believed them. To everyone else, they were criminals grasping at ghosts. To Da-eun, that was the cruelest vengeance. The truth, unbelievable to the world. The siege tightened. Rumors of irregularities leaked. Not yet proof, just enough to shake investors. I can feel it, Minji told Hyun. She isn't who she says she is. She has something against us. You see ghosts everywhere, he scoffed. She wants business. Maybe me too. But even he began to feel the chill. At interviews, when asked about her rival's scandals, Da-eun said only, "Fire consumes what isn't solid. Only what's true survives." The line went viral. Phoenix became a symbol. A formal summons hit Hyun's desk like an axe. Prosecutors opened an investigation against him and Minji. Lawyers quit. He tore the paper. They won't destroy me. I won't lose everything. Minji crashed an event in a frenzy. Facing Da-eun under camera flashes, she shrieked, "Who are you really? Where did you come from?" The hall went silent. Da-eun, unruffled, gave a small smile. "I'm just someone who learned not to fear fire." Minji froze. In that smile, that gaze, something felt horrifyingly familiar. Words died in her throat. Security let her out. Headlines the next day. Hyun's wife melts down at event. Back at her penthouse, Da-eun laughed silently. The trap was sprung. The world didn't know who she was, but they did, and that was enough to unhinge them. She wrote, "I don't need the truth, public. It's enough that they know. It's enough that the fire they lit follows them in every shadow, every laugh they mistook for victory. It's enough that my presence is their hell." Lightning scratched the sky. The traitor's ruin was underway. Storm clouds hung over Seoul. The city itself seemed to sense the tragedy's final act. Lightning flashed around Phoenix's tower like a lone lighthouse in the dark. That night, Da-eun walked the marble corridor of her penthouse. Each step echoed like a prelude. In the main hall, she waited for the meeting that would change everything. Across town, Hyun and Minji panicked. The investigation had turned into a warrant for pretrial detention. Lawyers quit. Headlines screamed collapse. Then a letter summoned them. "If you want the truth, come to the top of the Phoenix building." Midnight, they went. Not brave, but desperate. They entered a hall lit by modern candelabras and found Da-eun before the windows, the city blazing behind her. Her posture was near ethereal. "You," Minji breathed. "Who are you?" Da-eun turned slowly. Her face was serene, but her eyes, unmistakable. She walked toward them, each step a sentence. When she stopped, her voice cut the air. "You truly don't recognize the fire you lit?" Hyun tried to steady his shaking hands. "What are you talking about?" She tilted her head, a cold smile at her lips, and whispered, sharp as venom, "I am Yuen." Silence hit like a collapse. Minji stumbled back, trembling head to toe. No, you died. I saw you burn. I saw it with my own eyes." Hyun's blood froze. The laugh was gone. He stepped closer, searching her transformed face for any trace of the wife he'd left to the flames. Suddenly he saw it. The eyes. The same eyes that had stared at him in terror through a locked door. "No, it can't be," he muttered, retreating. Da-eun's smile stayed calm. "You laughed while the fire devoured me. You stole my inheritance, my name, my dignity. You thought I was weak, but you forgot one thing." She lifted her chin. Her eyes flashed. "From ashes, the phoenix is born." Minji screamed. "She's insane! A ghost! A demon!" Hyun dropped to his knees, hands shaking. "Forgive me. Yuen, please. No. For the world, what followed looked different. Cameras captured the couple being led away in cuffs, shouting broken names, claiming the phoenix was the dead returned. Journalists wrote, Couple suffers breakdown during arrest. No one believed them. After all, Yuan had died in a fire months ago. There was no body, but there were records. The executive leading Phoenix Group was someone entirely different. In the silent hall after they were gone, Da-eun lifted a glass of wine in an invisible toast. "You never believed me. Now no one will believe you." Back in her room, the smile faded. She touched her skin, still carrying invisible memories of flame. The mirror showed a strong, victorious, feared woman. Inside, pain still smoldered. She wrote, "They're destroyed. But what about me? What remains of the woman who died in that cabin? Will Da-eun be lost in ashes too?" On her desk lay an envelope, Woo-Jin's handwriting. "No matter how high the phoenix flies, there's always a place to land again. If that place is with me, I'll be waiting." A single tear slipped free. For the first time in a long time, the fire inside quieted. The traitors were ruined, unhinged, locked in a prison of iron and memory. And her? She finally had the power to choose. The night was calm. No storms, no thunder. Just the heavy silence of a city asleep, indifferent to the fall of two once powerful names. Hyun and Min-ji were behind bars. The world saw criminals and liars, but they felt a different wound. The ghosts they thought they burned had returned in flesh and bone. No one believed them, not even their lawyers. They were alone, imprisoned by justice, and the madness of knowing the woman they condemned now reigned above them. On Phoenix's top floor, Da-eun walked the balcony slowly. Cold wind combed her loose hair. The skyline glittered like a sea of artificial stars. She should have felt complete. She'd executed every step, but restlessness nagged. With each victory, the emptiness grew. With each memory of mountain silence, she ached for Woo-Jin like an open wound. She reread his letter. "There's always a place to land again. If that place is with me, I'll be waiting." She closed her eyes and imagined pine, the stream's rush, the warmth of his hands dressing her wounds. A simple life of quiet gestures felt like a distant dream. But as if summoned, the memory of Hyun and Min-ji's laughter returned. The taste of poison, the heat of flames, the child lost, the parents gone. "Can I renounce hate?" she asked the mirror. "Or has hate become who I am?" The next morning, Woo-Jin surprised her in her office, no longer in mountain clothes, but in a dark, sharp suit. His posture had changed. His eyes had not. Serene, steady, a calm no one in the city possessed. "You came back," she whispered. "I said I'd be ready to walk beside you," he said. "This world isn't yours," she countered. "You don't belong to it." He laid a folder on her desk. "I was born in this world before I left it. I know how it works. You don't have to carry this alone." Inside were documents, more proof, political connections, hidden transactions. Even in the mountains, he had never stopped watching the city's shadows. He knew where to look, which doors to open. Her heart stuttered, not just at his presence, but at the realization she truly had an ally. In the days that followed, Woo-Jin stayed near, quiet in meetings, careful in plans. His presence was strength and steadiness. One night after a long session, they were alone. Silence settled between them, like in the cabin. He poured tea and handed it to her without a word. The warmth in her palms carried her back to those simple soups. "Sometimes I think about giving it all up," she confessed. "If I stayed by your side and just lived? If you quit now," he said gently but firm, "you'll never find peace. This isn't just revenge. It's taking your life back. They stole who you were. Only when you close this debt will you truly be free to choose who you'll be." She knew he was right. She also knew the deeper she went, the further she drifted from the woman he'd saved. The dilemma grew daily. Vengeance on one side, a love born of silence on the other. In her journal, "Between love and revenge, what is true rebirth? Can the phoenix fly without the weight of ashes?" Hyun and Min-ji rotted in the jail of their minds, shouting that Da-eun was Yuan reborn. No one believed them. To Da-eun, that was perfect justice, a truth too impossible to accept, yet her heart still burned. When Woo-Jin came close and quiet, she longed to douse the flames and simply be loved. But like the fire that once engulfed her, vengeance felt inevitable. A gray morning settled over Seoul. From Phoenix's heights, Da-eun looked down like a veteran over a battlefield after war. Headlines screamed their ruin: corruption, fraud, embezzlement. And yet their truest prison was knowing the woman they tried to burn was now looking down with eyes of flame. That afternoon, she entered a prison visitation room. Oppressive silence, punctured only by far-off steps and slamming doors. Hyun shuffled in, cuffed, hollow-eyed. He froze when he saw her. "You," his voice rasped. "You can't be real." Minji followed, hair wild, mouth trembling. She fell to her knees. "Forgive me, please. Yuen, don't leave me here." Da-un stood, serene. "I didn't come to save you. I came so you would look at me one last time and understand. You didn't destroy me." She leaned over the table, eyes blazing. "You laughed while the fire consumed me. Now I laugh while you beg. That's the difference between us. I survived. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet." She rose. They screamed her true name, desperate to prove her identity to the guards. No one believed them. To all, they were criminals in delusion. She walked out, footsteps steady, leaving their echoes behind. Outside, Woo-Jin waited. Plain gray suit, the same clear eyes. No masks, no judgment. Just a look that said, "I still see you." "Is it done?" he asked. She drew a long breath, a weight lifting. "Yes, they're only dust now." "And you?" he asked softly. "Are you still made only of ashes?" The question sank deeper than any of her enemies' screams. She looked away. Phoenix consolidated as Korea's greatest corporate power. Magazines splashed her face. Queen of Ashes, the Phoenix Enigma, the woman who beat the fire. Alone, she studied the mirror and wondered who she truly was, the Phoenix born of revenge, or the quiet woman once cared for by calloused hands. One night, Woo-Jin drove her out of the city to a secluded beach. The sea was rough, waves tearing at the black sand. They sat side by side, listening. "You won everything," he said at last, "but you still look lost." "Maybe because revenge isn't a destination," she answered. "Only a road." "Then choose your destination now," he said, eyes steady. "You can keep living for the fire, or live for what rose from it. You can live for us." Tears fell, not from weakness, but because for the first time someone offered love without conditions. No need for beauty, fortune, or power. Only her presence. The next morning, the press reported Da-un had stepped back from Phoenix's leadership, appointing a council to run the empire. No one understood. She offered no explanations. She only wrote, "The Phoenix doesn't live forever in flames. One day, it has to land and start again." Months later, rumors spread of sightings in distant villages. A tall man with serene eyes walking with a woman who looked like a legend. Some called it imagination. Others, a new urban myth. Those who knew the truth understood. Yuen had found her dawn beside Woo-Jin. She hadn't stopped being the Phoenix, but she chose not to live on ashes alone. On the last page of her notebook, she wrote, "I died in the fire. I was reborn in the ashes. And finally, I learned to fly. Not for revenge, but for love." And so the Phoenix took flight again, not alone, but with a steady, caring love of a true man, one who would never hurt her. If this story moved you, like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss the next narratives, and you'll keep traveling with me through intense, emotional stories full of twists and triumphs. Your support is what keeps me going.